It's not really like that though. I mean, if you're the kind of person that has a certain kind of mind that has the ability to think something out, to work something out in context of problem resolution or conflict resolution, you're able to construct a dialogue and then articulate it. You can get through the shit. It's not that difficult, really. I mean, I can sit here and I can put charges on marijuana. Like negativity, negativity. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then um, put the responsibility of its use, collectively on society or the authorities or whatever. It doesn't really go anywhere, does it? But downhill, right? Because um, it doesn't have to be a negative thing necessarily, because personally, I think it is beneficial for um, people to work together to make the product accessible to people that might need it. You know what I mean? For medicinal purposes and for beneficial purposes. For beneficial use. So I guess the direction that that the dialogue should go is at that point is more like okay, 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 don't buy commercial weed, but don't knock it either. Like, just deal with it. Like if you have a complaint about it, you just say to the dispensaries, you say, okay, I like this idea, but I'm not gonna buy this, and unless you make certain changes. Take certain elements out of the equation or implement certain elements into the equation. Both together. Um, what I like about the um, commercial movement or the commercialization is the fact that it enabled people to develop the strains, like, and organize the educational aspect of it. Like, I can walk into a dispensary and I can see, okay, this is indica, this is sativa, these are hybrids. These hybrids are organized in a certain way. I can see the information on the stickers, like, okay, this hybrid is a 50-50, this hybrid is a 90-10. I bought some of this shit. I bought this shit called Golden Goat. It was a 90-10 um, sativa dominant hybrid with the 10% indica, and I smoked it, and that stuff was really good. It was like a functional strain. Like, I didn't have that ring in my head when I was on it. I didn't have disorientation, and I was awake and aware and functional, and I could socialize and I could do things, and wasn't paranoid, and it was a really nice strain. There was other stuff that couch locked me or that made me paranoid. I smoked this stuff called Blue Dream, and that stuff like made me walk away from people and go hide somewhere and walk up and down the alley because I was too, you know, uh, fried, to even cross the street until it wore off. And I didn't like that, you know. There was this other stuff, lemon skunk. I smoked a few hits of that, and I was sitting on the couch staring at a TV screen for 1 hour before I could even speak. And that can't be right. And I analyzed that in my head later, and I said, well, what's the function of this? Then there was this other stuff called Gorilla Glue 4. Smoked that, and it turned me creative. I picked up a pen and I drew a really nice picture. I made a really nice drawing that came out of that. So it kind of focused my mind in a creative way. So I started learning about the different strains, what they do, and how how the formula is oriented to cause them to do what they do to you, and and then also taken into context, how they're sourced and how that affects the culture, the people. It comes from a store, so it's gonna take you into that commercial circuit, But if I was able to get that strain from a private grower, you take all of these things into context, and you take all these things into the equation, and then you make judgments and decisions based on what you experience and what you learn, right? So what you do is you can choose to only buy from private growers and not from commercial based sources, and then you can communicate with the private sources, like you can say, hey, do you grow this, or can you grow this? Like that one lady I was talking about before, she had certain stuff that she had grown for people that wanted certain stuff, but they didn't want to buy it from the commercial growers, so she got the strain and she did it organically. So there's that, right? In Portugal, they decriminalized all the drugs, and the crime index um, didn't reduce; it just disappeared. Like their crime index disappeared as a result. Should we take the hint from them? I think so. I think we should take that hint from them, and the way they treat it is like the way they treat junkies is as if they're medical patients and not criminals. They see it as a medical condition, like they're sick and they need rehabilitation and they need help, not a freaking criminal profile. So what they do is they when they catch people with more a larger volume of the drug than they're supposed to have, they take away the amount that exceeds the amount they're supposed to have, and then they issue them a piece of paper that has rehabilitation sources on it, so they can go and they can rehabilitate. They don't freaking handcuff them and throw them in jail. If they commit a crime, then that's an issue. They'll implement law enforcement for crimes, obviously, but drug usage in and of itself is not seen as criminal there in Portugal. So after that system was implemented, the crime index just vanished. I mean, sure, maybe you still have some crime here and there, but I mean, nowhere, nothing like, what it was during Prohibition. And like in Chicago, I'm from Chicago, okay, so Chicago is the most violent city in the United States. I don't let anybody try to argue that, maybe there's some kind of statistics or something like that say that maybe Washington, D.C. is, per capita crime statistics are higher, whatever. Chicago is the most violent city, okay, in the United States, and the reason for this is because of the prohibition of alcohol back, I guess it was in the 20s or something like that, and then that was where all the gangs formed to control the territories and stuff, and that shit never went away, because after the prohibition of alcohol ended, then there was still prohibition of other things like marijuana and other drugs and stuff like that. So that gang warfare and crime and violence and all that shit just increased over time. and never went away. But I think that um, the whole legalization movement is um, is making beneficial advances. So I don't think it's correct personally. I don't think it's correct to completely dismiss the benefit of that, because it's like a route to another development that's forthcoming or something like that. I don't want to say, yeah, they're out to get us, man. They don't care about, they don't care about us, and they want, they're okay. There's that element, there's that aspect of certain kinds of people that are in the system and all that. But um, dismiss that, take your attention off of it, right? Because where attention goes, energy flows, right? Um, if you want to remove yourself from that circuit, then do that on an individual level. Do that yourself. Remove yourself from marijuana if you're not satisfied with what you're seeing. Take yourself away from it. I did. I'm not in Colorado anymore. I don't smoke marijuana anymore. I removed myself from that whole thing. I took my hiatus. I did that. So I can sit here and I can formulate a dialogue and kind of go over it and figure it out, and but yeah, I think it works itself out. I think really it comes down to the individual to make their own decisions. I mean, obviously, you got to use your common sense. I mean, if you don't have common sense because you're drinking too much of the tap water and it's taking away your motivation, there's so many different elements involved in this whole equation. It's just ridiculous, man. But if you have the motivation, you have the incentive, you have passion for life, and enough to the point where you're interested in constructing a dialogue and then sharing it with other people, then my idea is just stay focused and don't let yourself sink, because then you're just gonna sink right into the pitfall of just negative thinking for what that is. You know what I mean? Um, but no, it's still. I think it's still right. I still agree that it is beneficial to give people a heads up and to come out and call stuff out for what it is. Hey, man, you're smoking militarized marijuana. That's the no. That's, I mean, say that shit. You know what I mean? But at the same time, add an extension to it. Like the solution to it. You got to be able to follow up with what to do about it. Like stop doing that, man. Don't smoke that shit. Don't buy the commercial weed, man. Do this instead. If you want to smoke weed, then get educated about why you're doing it, and pay attention, and pay intention. Be intentional with what you're doing, and offer more education on the issue. Instead of just like calling people out and that's that. It's like they don't want to hear that shit. It's like shit they already know. You're not telling me something I don't already like that. You're not telling me something I don't already know. what else? you know, finish the fucking sentence. Tell me the rest of the story. You know what I mean? Give me the rest of the information. Partial knowledge is always a bad thing. That's the problem with the culture, is that it has partial knowledge, and it needs intellectual sourcing, academic sourcing. So I mean, I don't want. As people that want to resolve this issue, we don't want to um, create any media that's gonna construct a hindrance to the development in this area, because otherwise it's just going to go back to the same old way. It's just going to be people beating around. They're going to do what they're going to do anyway and keep trying to get what they need and failing, and then just kind of fall into that circuit. You know what I'm saying, right?